alternative options I've looked into, there's some that are great, but Hospitable, I think by far is the easiest to learn and start with when everything's kind of new and can be overwhelming. So my name's Allen Duan. I'm one of the co-founders of Hospy Homes. For quite a while, I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I think especially after I started doing it, I knew it's, as far as my strengths, my weaknesses, it was a much better fit for me than like typical W-2, corporate kind of job. A big part of it though was, so I have 3 girls. When I quit my W-2, my oldest was 2, and I didn't like how little I saw her. I come home from work, long commutes. So really, I love this business, but really getting into a business in and of itself allows me this flexibility, build my own thing, and control my schedule, see my kids more. So that's really a big initial why. Yeah, so we manage short-term and midterm rentals in Los Angeles County and North Orange County. So it's kind of SoCal overall. So for those who are familiar, right now I would say northernmost is Santa Monica, down to Fountain Valley, which is like in Orange County. That's kind of our range right now. Our core business model right now is property management. Similar to co-hosting, there's some differences there. We got our start doing rental arbitrage, and we still have a couple of those, but our focus now is essentially for this home, for example, it belongs to an owner who furnishes it, and then they hired us to manage it for them. Being in a big market like Los Angeles, where short-term rental regulations are very strict, a lot of our properties are midterm rentals. So for those who don't know the term, it's essentially a short-term rental that's 30 days or longer to avoid the regulations. So it is also different types of guests, right? Not typically vacation travelers, people traveling for work, stuff like that. So a lot of our properties, including this one, it's a 30-day minimum, but using tools like Hospitable that are designed for short-term rentals works perfectly because it has a lot of similarities still. So I think that is something that makes us unique. There's a lot of similar businesses like ours in SoCal that are very short-term rental focused. We do both short-term and midterm. So this home it's one of our newer properties. So the owner, they moved out and they had it designed by Kindred Design is the company. So I think one of the reasons why I chose it here is it's one of our nicer properties that I'm proud of. This property, it's in Torrance, California, which is outside of Los Angeles. This is technically a townhome, I think is what's considered. So it's 2 floors. This is the first floor is living room, kitchen, and then upstairs is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. One thing that's really cool about this property, and we put this in the listing, right? And what we want to kind of lead with is it has a really nice master suite. It's I don't think we looked at it yet, but it's big. There's actually like a little living room area with its own TV. It has this walk-in closet, its own bathroom. So that's definitely what we, emphasize in the listing, especially if I think about like a family renting and the parents like, ooh, we want that. We'll hang out in there, and the kids are out there. It has an outdoor patio space out here, which is always nice in California, having outdoor space. So Torrance, it's in a part of LA called the South Bay. It's a relatively nicer part of LA. There are, and it's not relevant for like short-term rental, but like the school district is great. When it comes to like work travelers, there's a lot of hospitals nearby. So this home, a 3-bedroom, wouldn't appeal as much to like the medical professionals, but we have other properties that get a lot of those. But yeah, it's just a nice little pocket in Los Angeles. So I love Hospitable's app. We've used other apps for other systems and they work, but Hospitable's it looks nice, it's quick, it's responsive. So being able to pick up my phone anywhere I'm at and like check something like, is this property booked? How long is it booked for? Just simple things like that, having that information centralized is really the key piece. I can't imagine running this business without software. So we started using Hospitable back in 2017 when it was still called Smart B&B. And I believe at that time it was just the guest messaging feature that Smart B&B had. So that's why we started using it, and we're still using it for that purpose. But really, it's a time savings. I know there's, people talk about in Airbnb, if you have a fast response rate, that helps with like the algorithm and all that. Of course, it helps with just the customer experience, getting better reviews. So having, when someone books or they have an inquiry, like a friendly response that's right away, super valuable. When I talk to others who want to get into this business, there's a few tools I always recommend as like a bare minimum, even with one property. So like the auto messaging. So Hospitable, I do recommend because it's very user friendly and easy to get started with. But guest messaging, stuff like dynamic pricing is like a must for even one property when you're starting. The section where it connects with your smart locks, I think that's a newer feature. But essentially, before Hospitable added that feature, we, meaning myself or my team, would basically go create codes manually. It didn't take that much time, but if you think about it, especially if it's short-term rentals, every booking, I think we had like a weekly task to create the next week's codes, like custom codes, do the last 4 digits of the phone number. It's all manual. So that definitely, having the automation, it saves time on the front end of just creating them, but it helps with things. I would say maybe a specific example is if we get an instant booking and it's like late at night, then the code gets automatically created, right? It's not like, oh, like, hey, I gotta send someone a Slack message. Can you create their code? Someone just booked, before they arrive. So it's a time savings as well as I think the most valuable piece is not having to like be on my phone at all times and waiting for messages to come in. That kind of time savings as well. I'm often talking to people who want to get into this business, and what I tell them is, sometimes they think if they have 1 or 2 in the beginning, it's not worth getting all the software yet. But I tell them even with one property is worthwhile, because number one, it's very affordable. But right off the bat, the time savings, and even it could potentially help them make more money, I think it makes up for the cost very easily. And as far as being in this industry long enough now, where I've seen some other software and apps and kind of their pace of development, Hospitable has stood out to me. Because again, 7 years ago, they had just guest messaging. Now it's like a full thing. It has almost everything you need. I know companies that are like my size or bigger who only use Hospitable for everything. So just the fact that in 7 years, that's kind of what's developed versus some other apps that really haven't done that much more that time. So, I don't see Pierre's content as much anymore. Maybe that makes sense as the company grows. But I remember in the beginning, I've seen him a lot in different, like he's even in Facebook groups commenting himself, right? So I was impressed early on with the team, and just kind of how I saw them in the marketplace, learning about their customers and industry. AI generated like responses. I personally tested it a little bit because I have a team member who does most of the guest messaging. So when it came out, I remember getting the email. I thought this is neat, so I tested it. And I've seen AI like tools like this before, and it kind of does a job, ChatGPT and all that, but it might not come off as natural, right? So I remember I was impressed that when I used it to respond to a guest message, I don't think I had to change it much, which I think is a lot, right? Normally you can go in and edit it. So then I told my team member, like, hey, this thing's out, let's use it. Feel free to use it, edit it as you wish. So I can't say how much she's using it now, I don't know, but I think it's neat. I would say the first thing, and I think this is true of any business, is to know your customer, or even know if the customer exists or enough of them exist, right? So I often get asked by, just in my networking and connecting with others, like, I have a property here, will it work? Because you could do all sorts of automation and software, but no one's booking the property, it doesn't matter, right? So, there's, I don't think, maybe Hospitable's playing on this, but I don't think Hospitable has like a market research tool yet. So there's certain other apps that do that piece of it. But yeah, knowing who you're expecting to rent your property. In our case, we do property management, so we also have to think about who is the type of client who would hire us to manage their property. So for example, this family moved out of state and now they're renting out their home. And then of course, getting into numbers like how much can you make on this? Is it worthwhile? And all that. That's really the first piece. And then the other part I would add to it is, I think there's a difference between people who want to get into this business and they want to get 1 to 5, few properties. And maybe they don't need to use as much software or hire, employees to do it themselves, and that's what they want. And then there's those who are getting into it who want to get 10, 20, 30, 50, right? And that's really where I recommend from day one, get your software in place, the automation, start thinking about your team, because you might as well do that in the beginning. They have to do it later and kind of change things up. And that's kind of where I've leaned into, is the systemizing, kind of how to do that at scale. And that, the software is, there's a saying I read somewhere, I can't remember where I first read it, but automate and delegate. I think that's the order, because if you can automate something, then you don't have to hire. If you can't automate something, then you hire someone to do it.